And to complete the most significant news for this day, Y News continues. Here are the top stories. Several trucker groups insist that the port congestion at the Manila International Container Port remains to be a problem, contrary to the pronouncement of the Bureau of Customs. With this, the groups are determined to push for the truck holiday. Joan Nano tells us why.
In a drone video shared by the Alliance of Philippines Brokers and Truckers Association, long queue of trailer trucks can be seen along Road 10 in Manila. Teddy Hervasio, president of the group, says this only proves that the port congestion at the Manila International Container Port still exists.
In all indication, nararamdaman na natin sa sitwasyon ngayon, nakita nyo naman, no? Na yung pangyayari noong 2014 ay nandirito. Mapupuno ang pier, hindi makakagalaw ang mga truck.
In a video shot by UNTV News team at past 12 in the afternoon earlier, there was a bumper-to-bumper traffic in front of North Harbor Gate 3. Aduana Business Club Vice President Abe Ribao argues that it is not true that port congestion does not exist anymore. He complains that their trucks take 2 days lining up before they could enter the Manila International Container Port.
Ano sinabi nilang walang problema? Nakikita naman po nila at mismo kami po ay nakakaranas na ang mga truck po namin sa loob ng port ay umabot po ng 2 araw bago po makalabas.
Out of the 5,000 container vans that are being delivered by ships, only 3,500 are being discharged from the port. In a press conference last September, then Customs Commissioner Isidro La Peña revealed that the yard utilization in Manila ports are in place and that port congestion is not a problem anymore. They appealed to the government to order the foreign shipping lines to look for their own container yards outside Metro Manila to address port congestions. Apart from this, they are also asking the Department of Transportation to stop the planned phase-out of 15-year-old trucks. They warned that if the government fails to resolve the port congestion and if the DOTR will insist on the phase-out, prices of imported goods might increase as an effect of their planned truck holiday starting on Monday, November 19. Joan Nano, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
Meanwhile, former First Lady Imelda Romualdez Marcos posts 150,000 peso bail for provisional liberty after she was found guilty of graft. Marcos appeared before the Sandigan Bayan's 5th Division earlier to explain her absence when the court read her verdict last Friday. She claims she was not aware of the scheduled court promulgation last November 9 and also mentioned her frail health. The court presiding judge also quizzed Marcos on her attendance at her daughter Aimeen's birthday party the day after her conviction, to which she responded by saying that she went there upon her daughter's insistence. The court accepted the bond while it decides on her motion to remain free while she appeals the conviction.
We are glad na binigyan siya ng bail.
Apo.
Ayan. Yung motion namin hindi pa grant.
President Rodrigo Duterte will no longer fully attend the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation or APEC meeting in Papua New Guinea. Duterte, who is already in the southwestern Pacific nation, will instead be represented by his cabinet secretaries in the summit over the weekend. Malacanang says Duterte will leave for Davao City from Port Moresby on Saturday evening after the gala dinner. No reason was given why Duterte chose to end his APEC trip by a day. Officials from the Department of Environment and Natural Resources plan to visit El Nido, Palawan next week to inspect structures following the closure of more than 20 business establishments for violating environmental laws. Based on initial findings, 50 other establishments are facing possible closure for violating the 3-meter coastal easement policy. They were given until this week to comply and self-demolish. The DNR also plans to conduct a second dry run in El Nido on November 23rd and 24th for the new policy, allowing only 40 tourists and 20 kayaks at the small lagoon every 30 minutes and 120 tourists and kayakers at the big lagoon for every 90 minutes. Several travel agency owners, meanwhile, have expressed worry over the possible cancellation of their advance booking due to the looming rehabilitation of El Nido.
Nagpabook na sila sa amin, nag-down payment na sila. So kami naman bilang as a travel and tours, nireserve na namin yung books nila sa rooms. Tapos bigla na lang i-rehabilitation yung mga other accommodation. Baka mag-back out sila.
Mostly ecological tours at saka wildlife tours yung ginagawa namin.
Meanwhile, a group of consumers are questioning the rate adjustment implemented by water concessionaires Maynilad and Manila Water for the month of November. The group, United Filipino Consumers and Commuters, accuses the Metropolitan Water Works and Sewerage System of approving and implementing the rate hike petition of the two water concessionaires without transparency.
Magkano nakolekta rito sa currency exchange rate adjustment? So, ibig sabihin, kung gumagalaw ito yung pantatapal mo. So, wala dapat sisingil sa ating mga water consumers.
The MWSS, however, insists that the latest rate adjustment went through consideration and consultations with stakeholders. The agency also defends the charges they approved, including the 20% environmental fee for residential areas.
Maliit pa nga po yan eh. It's cost more than that ang sewerage natin sa septage.
In other news, the Department of Labor and Employment forms a task force to combat illegal recruitment and human trafficking following the rescue of 24 minors who were about to be sent by illegal recruiters to Saudi Arabia. The task force will be composed of the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, the Philippine Overseas Employment Administration, Bureau of Local Employment, International Labor Affairs, and Bureau of Workers with Special Concerns. A hotline will also be launched for complaints and reports against illegal recruitment in the country. DOLE also discloses it is now preparing to file cases before the Department of Justice against 19 recruitment agencies that victimized the minors they rescued. The agency is also probing whether these agencies have cohorts inside government agencies.
We cannot avoid that there are also connivance from within.
And for the news abroad, here's Stephanie C. live from Hong Kong. Steph, good evening.
Good evening, William. For the first time, two leaders of the brutal Khmer Rouge regime in Cambodia have been found guilty of genocide. Nuon Chea, 92, was the loyal deputy of regime leader Pol Pot, and Khieu Samphan, 87, was head of state. They were on trial at the Un Bac Tribunal on charges of genocide against Cham Muslims and ethnic Vietnamese. The guilty verdict is the first official acknowledgement that what the regime did was genocide as defined under international law. The two men already serving life sentences for crimes against humanity have been again sentenced to life. Hundreds of Rohingya Muslim refugees in Bangladesh protested on Thursday against any attempt to send them back to Myanmar after the launch of a repatriation plan was postponed. Bangladesh had begun preparations to repatriate an initial batch of more than 2,000 Rohingya to Myanmar, in line with a plan agreed with Myanmar in October. But by late afternoon, no refugees had been moved back to the border, Myanmar officials said. There have been extensive doubts about the plan, particularly from the UN Refugee Agency and aid groups who fear for the safety of the Rohingya in Myanmar. U.S. authorities have intensified the search for victims as the tally of missing persons in California's deadliest blaze surpasses 600. Here's why from Beverly Saison.
A search for victims of a catastrophic blaze that reduced a Northern California town to ashes intensified on Thursday as authorities expanded to 630, the number of those reported missing in the deadliest and most destructive wildfire in state history. At least 63 people have been confirmed dead in the Camp Fire, which erupted a week ago in the drought-parched Sierra foothills, 175 miles or 280 kilometers north of San Francisco, and now ranks as one of the most lethal single U.S. wildfires since the turn of the last century. Nearly 12,000 homes and buildings, including most of the town, were incinerated last Thursday night, hours after the blaze erupted, the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, or CAL FIRE, said. Thousands of additional structures were still threatened by the blaze, and as many as 50,000 people were under evacuation orders at the height of the blaze. An army of firefighters, many from distant states, labored to contain and suppress the flames. The revised official roster of 630 individuals whose whereabouts and fate remain unknown is more than double the 297 listed earlier in the day by the Butte County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Corey Honea said nearly 300 people initially reported as unaccounted for had been found alive. He said the list of missing would keep fluctuating, with names being added and others removed, either because they turned up safe or identified among the deads. The sheriff has asked relatives of the missing to submit DNA samples to hasten identification of the dead, but he acknowledged some of those unaccounted for may never be conclusively found. The Butte County disaster coincided with the flurry of smaller blazes in Southern California, including the Woolsey Fire, which has been linked with 3 fatalities and destroyed at least 500 structures in the mountains and foothills near the Malibu coast west of Los Angeles. The latest blazes have capped a pair of calamitous wildfire seasons in California that scientists largely attribute to prolonged drought they say is symptomatic of climate change. The cause of the fires are under investigation, but 2 electric utilities have said they sustained equipment problems close to the origins of the blazes around the time they were reported. The White House said on Thursday that President Donald Trump, who has been criticized as having politicized the fires by casting blame on forest mismanagement, plans to visit the fire zones on Saturday to meet displaced residents. Beverly Sison, UNTV News and Rescue, USA.
South Korea is now looking for more information about the reported newly developed tactical weapon of North Korea. Meanwhile, a brawl erupts in the Sri Lankan parliament as political turmoil continues. Let's find out why from Jovic Burmas.
In South Korea, the Unification Ministry wants to check more about North Korea's newly developed weapon inspected by the country's leader Kim Jong-un. On Friday, North Korean state news agency KCNA reported that Kim inspected the test site of a tactical weapon, hailing it as a display of our rapidly growing defense capabilities to the whole region. The only picture released by state media showed Kim standing on a beach, surrounded by officials in military uniforms, but no weapons were visible. Kim said the weapon system tested was one in which his father Kim Jong-il had taken a special interest during his lifetime, personally leading its development. In Czech Republic, a large crowd of Czechs rallied Thursday in Prague calling for the resignation of Prime Minister Andrej Babis, who faces a no-confidence vote in parliament and whose coalition partners were mulling whether to quit the government. In the Wenceslas Square, several thousand chanted resignation and shame. Some waved Czech and EU flags and carried slogans including "Down with Babis." The pressure against Babis follows a media report in which his son said his father had wanted him to go into hiding to impede a criminal investigation. And in Sri Lanka, fighting broke out among lawmakers in Sri Lanka's parliament after weeks of political turmoil over who should lead the country. MPs rushed onto the floor of the House a day after a motion of no confidence was passed over the controversially appointed new Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. At least one MP was taken to hospital as punches were thrown and lawmakers from rival parties shouted at each other. Earlier in the session, the parliament speaker said Sri Lanka now had no functioning government. The president's decision last month to sack PM Ranil Wickremesinghe and replace him with former leader Mr. Rajapaksa has led to weeks of turmoil. Jovic Burmas, UNTV News and Rescue.
And those are the news from the other parts of the globe. Back to you, William.
Thank you very much, Stephanie C., live from Hong Kong. A hotel carved out of an old rock quarry opens its doors to the media in Shanghai, China. The hotel, which has a total of 336 rooms spread across 17 floors, 15 of which are underground, was housed in an approximately 36,800 square meters of space carved into the bedrock of the unused rock quarry. It also houses a man-made waterfall as part of the overall development. According to organizers, the construction for the hotel began in 2018 2013. Its owner offered reassurance on the safety of the building despite possible fears of geological instability or flooding. The hotel is set to open to the public on November 20. The adventure of the UNTV dive team continues as they explore Occidental Mindoro's Apo Reef and gets the chance to swim along a marine animal which experts say is one of the most misunderstood creatures. Brian Evangelista tells us why.
From the last week's episode featuring melonhead dolphin, blackfin barracudas, and other marine species, UNTV's The Dive program will showcase more wonders of creation that are found in the Philippine waters. The Dive team will take you to see 3 dive sites in Occidental Mindoro's Apo Reef, the country's largest atoll and the second largest contiguous coral reef system in the world. First up is the Apo Minor, the second islet marking the surface of Apo Reef.
Welcome your second dive called Apo Minor. Yeah, and this is the slope dive and plateau wall. The others call this one is shark airfield. After that one, we'll reach the airfield area. Slowly down, sometimes the shark will be sleeping that area. Okay? Then after we going up to the slope area, in the shallow, it's around 10 meters, and continue with the dive time 50 to 60 minutes, and we'll do 3 minutes if we stop in the 5 meters.
White-tip sharks are identifiable for the white tip on its dorsal fin. Mostly stay here to rest from the sweeping currents in the area. But divers wanting to experience the magnificence of Apo Reef need not worry because white-tip reef sharks are rarely aggressive towards humans. Sharks, according to experts, are one of the most misunderstood underwater creatures, largely due to their portrayal in the popular culture. Did you know that sharks play a significant role in the ecosystem? As apex predator, sharks maintain the underwater food balance by preying on and keeping the population of the weaker marine species under control. During our diving adventure, we were able to spot and swim along 2 white-tip sharks. From Apo Minor, the UNTV dive team also explored the diving sites of Apo Out and a shipwreck that has been here for more than 7 decades. The Apo Reef also features other sites that should be personally seen and experienced by scuba divers.
It's very easy. If you want to dive with Apo, just email us, go to the website, www.aporeefclub.com, and you find us there. We will help you to have this great experience with one of the best diving in the Philippines.
For more of our underwater adventure in the Apo Reef in Occidental Mindoro, watch the new episode of The Dive on Saturday at 5:30 p.m. after Historia. Brian Evangelista, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
And those are the reasons behind the news, November 16, 2018. On behalf of Angelo Caso III, I am William Theo. Because we need to know, we will always ask why. Good evening.
Public Service Channel.